All right, Minding Your Business community, we are back. Episode number 197 of the Minding Your Business podcast. Entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own. We're recording this on Monday, September the 14th. And I'm just excited about today's guest. I'm excited about everything that's going on. Hopefully, you are too. Hopefully, you're finding after coming off the weekend or whenever you're listening to this that you find things are going well and you're being the very best for yourself, the very best for your family, and the very best for your community. Listen, let me introduce and properly introduce today's guest because I'm very excited about the conversation we're about to have. And MYB community, we love to talk to our real estate professionals. And so I want to introduce you to Dan Rochon, who is the owner and co-founder of Greetings Virginia, which is greetingsvirginia.com. He's an associate broker there in the Maryland and Virginia areas. And I love those areas. I spent a little time in DC myself living there. So I love that Maryland and Virginia areas and those markets. And Dan's mission is to help people achieve their greatness and to open doorways to their success through his teaching, his coaching, and his mentorship. And as a real estate agent and leading teams as top producers in the industry and in the marketplace. We're in for a real treat today, and he's taking time out of a busy time and on a Monday, no doubt. And so, Dan Rochon, thank you so much for joining the Minding Your Business podcast, man. I really appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for welcoming me. Episode 197. I always wanted to be 197 for something.
Yeah. yeah. For me, it was never in school, so I figured I'd do it on a podcast.
Hey, let's do it.
Yeah. So Dan, man, again, we appreciate it, brother. And tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got started, man. We always love to hear the stories of how people rise up and obstacles that you face, joys that you experienced, and all that. So share with us, what's your story?
Well, I would say my story started around 2005. And at that time, I was waiting tables at a really high-end steakhouse in Washington, D.C. And this is a place like where all the lobbyists and, the senators and the, politicians and famous people where they mingled. And, you'd see the stories in the Washington Post, from the stories from the night before. So it was a pretty cool gig. But I was a very active alcoholic at that time, and I stopped drinking in 2005.
Understood.
So from, at that point, I started looking at okay, well, I want to do something more with my life. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to help people. I want to be able to, help them solve their problems, help them achieve their goals. For about 2 years, I sort of dwindled waiting tables and not knowing what the next step was going to be. And then one day, a friend of mine, Bill, had sat, he said, "Hey, Dan, have you ever, thought about real estate sales?" And I hadn't. And so I got my real estate license after Bill had, suggested it. And that was 2007. And so I got a license 2007. First 6 months, I sold zero. I was getting ready to say, this isn't it for me. I met with my broker. She gave me some good coaching on just being laser focused. And I had a lot of success in the next year. And a year after that conversation, so 18 months in, about 2009, I was able to buy the real estate brokerage that I worked for. That's how much success I had in that 1 year. And then I owned that real estate brokerage for 10 years, sold it 2 years ago, started writing a book, Real Estate Evolution, which is the 10-step guide to CPI. It's consistent, predictable income for real estate agents. And just been selling real estate for the last 2 years, having fun with it.
Yeah. Well, that's incredible. You entered the business, that's an interesting time. You entered the business at a time when, there was obviously the 08 kind of issue that took place. And that was around the time I entered the business as well. And it's funny, you were waiting tables at a time when I was there in DC. So I lived just down the street from Union Station.
I wasn't far from you, Sim Penn, Northwest.
There you go. Awesome. Yeah. There you go. And so, that's incredible. So, talk about, the those early days in the business? I know you said kind of your first year, you didn't really sell anything. What really changed for you? Because I think that's a lot of people, what they face is, they're not really overly successful out the gate. Right. And so,
Yeah.
some people, that's a demotivator, Dan, and they drop off and they say, oh, forget this, I'll go back to doing whatever. What kept you going, even when you didn't find early success?
Well, I don't think at the time I really understood why I was doing what I'm doing. I know as I went through the journey, I finally did decide or understand why I was doing what I was doing. But in the very beginning, I didn't know that, just to be candidly honest. And so to answer your question of what got me through it, it was just pure will and grit and the determination to never give up. And when I look at people in my industry today, that I would say when somebody asks, what type of behavior would indicate a likely success, most people are going to say somebody that's really, personable, or somebody that's really hard driven. And I do agree with those assessments, yet I think in front of those assessments, it's a behavior of grit and a behavior of I will never give up. And, that's a little bit of my DNA. And sometimes, for mostly, that served me. I'll be candid with you.
Yeah.
There's times where that's my way. I got a thing behind me here. It says never, 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 never give up. And then I put a little asterisk to it that I've added to it, unless if you should.
You're right.
Right. So that's, yeah. So
Right.
early on, I would say it was
Right.
just, I would say what got me to have success after I had that conversation with my broker was simplicity and understanding that the foundation of a business is lead generation. It's to be able to find business opportunities. I've got a poster in my office, which I'm not, and I'm in my home office, and
Yeah.
that poster has been there for 13 years. It says, I'm not in the real estate business. I'm in the lead generation business, specializing in real estate sales.
Yes.
And I know somebody famous or well known that I took that quote from them. I don't know who it was. So I'd like to quote them and give them credit for it. But that understanding lead generation is the first step. And then after that, it's, building an organization. After that, it's leadership.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And so, Dan, thanks for sharing that, because I think that's a great perspective for us all to have, whether you're in the real estate business or not, to
Any
understand.
business, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
any business.
exactly. Your true purpose. And so, I know you do some teaching and some coaching. Uh, how do you help people? So, I come across people, and I have for many years, who have always said they're interested in getting into real estate, but they feel like they got to have, stellar credit. They've got to have all this money in savings. So that all the stars have to align for them to do it, but they really have a desire to do that. What's some of your kind of coaching and teaching and advice for individuals that maybe young in their business, maybe they're interested in real estate on the side of what they do, maybe they're interested in real estate on the side of what they do in the workforce, so their current day job, they want to get into real estate. What advice and what kind of methods do you have for coaching and kind of bringing those people up to opportunities to be
Yeah.
successful?
I'll give you a tactic and then I'll give you sort of like a foundation. So to be able if you're talking about real estate investing, and I've been an investor for 20 plus years and an agent for 13 years. And so it's a little bit different between investing and brokering, but there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of overlap in just general business in general. If you're talking about investing and somebody wants to get into real estate investing, and let's say you have full credit, no money.
Yeah.
If you find a deal, the money will come.
Right.
Okay. But it has to be a deal. All right. And so the biggest challenge I think that somebody in that instance would experience is the fact that they don't have the understanding of being able to figure out what's a deal and what's not a deal.
Mm.
Right. And so then they start throwing a bunch of stuff against the wall, presenting it to potential investors, et cetera. And then the investor will say, you know what, the next time this guy comes, I'm not going to take his phone call or respond to the email. And
Right.
so you really, get a mentor. That's what I do. Somebody that can be willing to take a look at your deals. And if you have no money and no credit, or just one or the other, even, then you want to spend your time finding the deal. And something around that you mentioned about your strategy, which I think is a beautiful strategy of finding the deal, and then finding the investor, and then taking a margin in between, in a wholesale.
Yeah.
Right. Then you take that money and then you invest it for long-term wealth, which would be in buy and hold.
Yes.
And so if you're looking at like a wholesaling, is not much different than real estate brokering, except I think real estate brokering, even though real estate brokering is extraordinarily hard, it's easier than wholesaling, in my opinion.
Sure.
And both are extraordinarily hard. Okay. And so when you're looking at that as a perspective, that wholesaler is creating cash flow for the deals that they're flipping.
Yeah.
The real estate broker, the real estate agent's creating cash flow through the transactions that he or she is helping the buyer or helping the seller.
Yeah.
So that's cash flow. Okay, so then you take that cash flow and hopefully build enough of that cash flow up and then invest it into a buy and hold. And now the strategy is a little bit different. What I'm looking at today, I have some commercial properties that I wish I never bought. To be candid with you, I've got some office, condos, and they're all rented. I wouldn't buy them again now, because even without the pandemic, there still has been a mass exodus of people working from homes, and now with the pandemic, that's accelerated. So what we're looking at today is really industrial areas, looking for storage, warehouse type stuff.
Yeah.
Because I believe that that's going to always have a need. You can't predict the future, but I haven't figured out to take away that need yet, for that.
Yeah.
And then I promised real quick that I would share with you a foundation. So those are
Yeah.
some like specific tactics of what you can do. Yet it all starts with a foundation of who are you going to be,
Yeah.
because you have to get right with yourself before you can before everything else is going to fall in play rather. And so when you make the decision to be the best version of yourself, and when you take time and effort, that's like focused effort, to be able to develop yourself so that you become more open-minded, so that in regards to opportunities, possibilities, everything, so that that you can respect something that you may be fearful of, yet do it anyways, unless the fear is something that's going to hurt you.
Mm.
I'm afraid to put my hand on a stove. Well, I shouldn't. Okay, that's going to hurt me.
Right.
But me being afraid to pick up the phone and call somebody, that's not going to hurt me. There is zero. The only thing that's going to hurt me is my perception of getting rejected, and then me feeling as though that means something about me. Right.
Right.
So it's just, so I would say that would be the first place of any entrepreneur, any business owner to take a look at is who are they choosing to be, and how are they choosing to personally develop?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a big, it's very critical and very important, Dan, is to understand what your motivation is. So if you talk about real estate, obviously you're looking at the motivation of sellers, right? Sellers and buyers.
Sure.
And that's typical of any business, right? And so if you don't understand who you are, you don't understand what your skill set really is and entails, you don't understand what motivates you into your passion, then any of the tactics, like you say, that you mentioned, is going to be really tough to be successful in that, because like you say, if you've got fear factors that become crippling in that sort of regard, then yeah, it's going to be, everything will sound great, but it's going to be hard to then execute on. And I see that with people, and that's a good area to have a great understanding is what's the foundation. And so I love that from kind of a teaching and coaching standpoint. And so, what do you see? I guess you mentioned something about commercial property, and I've had commercial property in the past as well. Obviously, if you and I had spoke January 1st, Dan, and we said, you know what? I think we're going to have a worldwide pandemic this year, and we probably should buckle down and maybe change, and pivot some of what we're doing. We will laugh at each other out of the room, right?
Yeah.
And then, and then we get to March, and then here we are. And so, what do you see kind of overall with, talked about that foundation, what do you see overall with folks in business, whether it's real estate or not, as
Yeah.
this pandemic's gone, forward now, going on, I guess now about 6 months.
It's going to be a
And
year at least, by the way.
yeah,
Right.
I was
Like,
going to ask you that. Do you
yeah.
think it's,
But I mean, you and I don't know that. Here's the thing. That's just an opinion. Let me give you a
yeah,
little disclaimer on that. The other stuff that I'm sharing with you, I know about. That right there is
right.
just an opinion.
Right. Yeah. None of us have a crystal ball on that, but I think you
Yeah.
could be right. I think we're looking at next summer before
Yeah.
we really turn the corner. And I think that's holistic. I think there are going to be other areas that are going to be just like with real estate, right? You and I talked about entering the business, kind of, in that time frame of 07, 08. There were areas, you remember that there were areas that were hit harder than others, right?
Yeah.
I'm here in Memphis, Tennessee. We were hit fairly hard with that bursting of the real estate bubble. California hit hard. Texas, maybe not as much. Florida, maybe not.
Nevada, Florida, Detroit.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. There were some areas that were ravaged, and then there were some areas that, everybody took the hit, but maybe not as much, and that sort of thing. So I think it's kind of the same thing through this. There'll be areas of the country that'll rebound a little quicker, and then there'll be some areas that'll lag behind. We'll get some kind of vaccine, and then you got the next trouble of how you administer that and who trusts it, who doesn't,
Yeah.
all that type of thing. And I think ultimately everyone's gonna have to make their decision like they have as to, Dan, what's going to be, how we're going to operate and go through life, and what kind of risk, like we talk about real estate and every other business, what kind of risk am I willing to take and accept? Right.
Yeah. I
And
agree with
so,
you.
yeah. So
I look at the pandemic. If you look at it, like, how do I see it impacting business? The way that I see it impacting business is, and I talk about this in my book, Real Estate Evolution, in the evolution part of it. And this is
yeah,
true of every single business. So we were already going to a business, or to a business of being intertwined.
yeah,
And so, what that means is in the 1950s, technology started to enter into the marketplace. And so, really, from the 1950s to about 2010 ish, it was really all about technology. And today's technology, of course, still exists, yet
sure.
now the technology is starting to intertwine with each other. So I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. So, for example, you and I could get to your house right now at the fastest way possible, avoid every single pothole, know where every single speed trap is, and even know where the possums are on the ground, because we
Right.
have a community of people using Waze and Google Maps, and that data's right there. Right?
Yeah.
Someone, there's roadkill on the road. They just hit a little button. Everyone behind them knows it. And so that's as the technology is becoming interconnected.
Right.
And then you're looking at big data and artificial intelligence. So those three right there are driving the marketplace. And the last of these is commoditization. And
Yes.
so when you take the technology, when you take the artificial intelligence, as that develops, and it's got a long ways to go, yet the speed is going to get exponential, or at least on a really, like, a hockey stick curve.
Sure.
As that's happening, commoditization becomes more of a reality. And the definition of commoditization is that in the absence of a perceived value, the consumer goes to the lowest price guy or gal
Yeah.
or service or product.
Right.
Okay. And so, it's like, if I want to order, a 12 pack of bubbly water here, right? I go on my computer and I search where's the cheapest bubbly water, and I
Mm-hmm.
order it, and it shows up on my doorstep. Right.
Yeah.
That's how you see an example of the interconnection as well as the commoditization in that example. And so, really, as business owners, we have to consider and understand how we're going to pivot into that, because that's the reality. The pandemic has accelerated all that, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and so the pandemic is just like, it was like there was a fire burning already, and a good fire, and I won't say good or bad, right? It's just the marketplace has been changing already, and it's like gasoline thrown on that fire from the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic from a business perspective.
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
looking at real estate and businesses, I think in about a year from now or 6 months from now, I think there's going to be some opportunity. So if you're stacking cash right now, if you have the availability to do that, there's going to be really strong businesses 6 months from now. They're going to need capital that may
Yeah.
be looking for investors. And, you
Yeah.
could become an owner in some sort of, maybe smaller type business or whatever the case may be. And for me, I'm going to be looking for businesses that have been around at least 5 years, that
Yeah.
have employees that have been around for that, about that same amount of time, as well as a consumer base. And, those are businesses that are probably going to be stable, but they're going to need cash because they had to shut down for a time being. And,
Yeah.
and even when they open back up, everyone's putting their mask on. No one's even comfortable using them. So that's the opportunity there. And then real estate, going downwards, I would expect as the banks start saying, hey, you got to pay me.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's where I think it's going to start. Now, I know, and again, this is kind of part of my wheelhouse too in working in community banking, Dan, is that there's I guess being proposed legislation as part of the next kind of relief effort that the PPP, or the payroll protection loans, or program, which is the loans, there will be a provision to forgive them at $150,000 in loan amount or below. Obviously, that would have a significant impact if that could be I guess interjected into the law landscape. But in the event that that doesn't, there's going to be promissory notes due for many individuals who got some of that money, as well as businesses. And that's where I think next summer is really going to drive, or potentially drive, strong interest into getting things back open, because there's going to be, quite frankly, businesses that, like you say, that hit in the mouth and hit in the teeth, that now, have used that money, and now it's time to, make good and begin making payments. And so you're going to have, some level of, driving cash flow to be able to do that. And so I
there's
think
already a
it's all
bunch that
connected.
already gone out of business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's already happening, right? So it's not
Yeah.
even like a future. We're in the midst of it. I don't
Yeah.
think we've hit the
Absolutely.
peak of it though.
No, I don't think so either. I think we
Not even
will,
close.
again, yeah, it's all guesswork, MYB community. So like Dan said, I'll give the same disclosure. This is all Ronism guesswork. I'm no talking head. I'm no expert. You have to go to those guys and girls for that can, seemingly predict the future. Dan and I aren't paid enough to predict the future, but
Not that
but
far out,
no, not at all. But yeah, I think we'll hit a peak probably. I think the holidays will be somewhat rough for retail business, and I think that's once those numbers come out in January, that hey, maybe we didn't quite have the holiday season like we anticipated. And I think there's going to be some opportunity that's going to come from that. To your point, Dan, I think that could drive a cascading stream of opportunity, going into, say, second quarter next year, as the dominoes kind of fall from, what happens with retail. More of the, stores, brick and mortar start, are closing even more after, you're in the red all year. You're hoping to get into the black in December, November, December. That doesn't happen. What do we do? You kind of fall out, and then, there's opportunities for investment in some really key areas that will come back as this starts to subside.
Yeah, I mean, if you look before this happened, this was more than a year before. Businesses like Toys R Us went out of business, right? Like
Yeah.
it was already happening.
Right.
It's Amazon it's like when Walmart came in, years ago,
Yeah.
and the mom and pop shops, Amazon put them. I'm sorry, Walmart put the mom and pop shops out of business, and now Amazon's putting, the rest of them out of business, basically.
Right. Yeah. It's
You
kind
know,
of like the fish in the ocean. You got,
yeah.
a fish eats a fish, and then another fish comes and eats it.
Yeah,
And so,
and you look back, about a year and a half ago, Walmart's like, oh, hey, what's just happened
yeah.
there? There's a
Right.
bigger fish in the pond.
Right, exactly. They were the big fish for a long time, and then all of a
Yeah,
sudden, Amazon just kept gobbling up a bunch of guppies, and then all of a sudden, what happened? This online bookstore now is the biggest retailer ever, and coming for their neck, when they might have just been seen as a guppy before. But yeah,
Yep,
it's definitely
absolutely.
happening. You mentioned earlier too, Dan, about lead generation. I want to ask about that in regards to this conversation too. Is so for those that are entering, the real estate business, as you mentioned, lead generation is, fostering it, working that, having good, concise, but accurate data is important. Talk about that for those that are, new in business and certainly new in the real estate business. Talk about that lead generation piece, and then also kind of tie in, being an investor to being an agent in that
Yeah.
realm, because and you may help me with this, because I've gone back and forth as to should I get my real estate license, or should I continue to do things like wholesale and kind of buy and hold, that type of thing. And so can you kind of unpack that a little bit for us, kind of lead
Yeah. Let me
generation
unpack.
and into roles?
Yeah, I'll unpack that, and then I'll go back to lead generation.
Yeah.
So in that interim time between 2005 and 2007, when I was figuring my life out, I
Yeah.
started wholesaling during that time. Now I'd invested before then, and actually I wasn't investing; I was speculating and getting lucky until I ended up not getting
Yeah,
lucky, and that
I
was the thing.
understand. Yep.
That's another story we can have another time.
Yeah.
And so during that 2 years, I began to actually structure a wholesaling business. And I had the yellow signs way up on the telephone poles, with 800 numbers, and we would, prospect absentee owners and distressed properties. And I mean, it was it was a business. And what I found out during those 2 years was that I was looking for a needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
And so I figured, well, if I'm looking for a needle in a haystack, and what am I going to get for a wholesaling fee, whatever it may be, right?
Right.
And so I could maybe take less effort and find somebody that wants to sell their home and get in
Right.
front of them, and they're raising their hand. So I don't have to necessarily, I still have to find them, right? And I'll get into the lead generation piece here in a second, but they're not
Yeah.
as hard to find as that needle in that haystack. And so I
Yeah.
thought it was just good. And that's where I mentioned that earlier, where I said to you that I believe that real estate brokering is easier than wholesaling.
Sure.
Okay. I just, if you treat them both like a business, okay,
Right.
and you could be a salesperson, you could be a dabbler, whatever the case may be, and then it just is what it is. But if you treat both of them like a business, you put them side by side of each other, the lead generation for the wholesale is going to be harder than lead generation for the sales agent. And so
Sure.
that's why I made the decision in 2007 to close up the wholesaling and begin on just brokering.
Yeah.
And so that's how I made that transition.
Sure.
Now, when you look at lead generation for business, then lead generation for business is going to come from two different places. It's going to come from prospecting and from marketing. They both cost you something. Prospecting
Hmm.
costs, well, let me start with marketing. Marketing costs you money, prospecting costs you time.
Right.
Okay. So if you're new to business and you got no money, guess what?
Got a prospect.
You're going to be prospecting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
All right, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But so the prospecting, the reason why, if you want to build a big business, you have to transition over to marketing, and then you have a combination of prospecting and marketing, which is where my business is today. And the reason why you have to make that transition over is because with prospecting, you reach a very solid, a very very hard ceiling with prospecting, because at the 24-hour mark, you're on to the next day.
Right.
Okay, so you run out of time in the prospecting. So with that, it's a really hard ceiling. So to be
Yeah.
able to expand past that, then you have to get into marketing, which costs you money. Because marketing, if it's done right, you could scale that to whatever you want to make it. Right. And so
Yeah.
then that leaves prospecting. If you're a business owner, and if you're a new business owner, you're going to have to sit there and say, how can I get business? And then find out what you love to do, hopefully, or
Hmm.
what do you dislike to do the most would be a good second to that, right?
Right.
But if you don't, it really, in my opinion, you have to love to do it. And so you
Hmm.
find out, what do I love to do to be able to seek business, and now let me put that on steroids.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to do that one thing. I'm just going to hammer that one thing. And I'm going to have two things in the background. So I'm going to have two more things that are going to be, sort of supplementing that.
Yeah.
And you're looking for, how can I get business today? I'm going to hammer that. And then secondarily, how can I get business 18 months from now?
Yes.
Right? Because
Yeah.
that's building the business, is the
Right.
18 months from now. Because that's building that business of, I'm going to be able to get referrals, I'm going to be able to get introductions, whatever the case may be. And I've got, this book of business or this bank of business, down the road, but I still need to eat today.
Yeah.
So for a real estate agent, for example, what type of business can you get today? And you can apply this, into real estate investing as well. But it's going to be, call expireds, call for sale by owners. It's going to be circle prospecting, call absentee owners. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
those are some of the do open houses, do Facebook advertising. Those are some of the ways that you can find business today.
Yeah.
18 months from now, it's about taking the people from a transactional relationship and bringing them into a relational relationship. And so it's about then systematically providing value and contribution to them through time. And so
Yeah.
that's your 18-month business, right? But that's the best type of business, because that defeats commoditization. Because if
Right.
you may have missed a word when I talked about commoditization, was when I said perceived value, you may have
Yes.
heard value.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
I heard the adjective attached to it. Yeah.
Right. And so it's a perception of what is value. And so now the people that you're loving on and systematically contributing to, now when they refer you some business, the people that they refer you to are going to already understand the value that you provide.
Right.
Okay. And if they understand the value that you provide, then that allows for you to charge a higher price,
Yeah.
or an
Absolutely.
appropriate price is probably better said.
Yeah.
Okay. Because right now the prices that I can charge in real estate brokering are getting pushed down.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
now the
Absolutely.
last thing I'll say about lead generation is you don't have to do all of it. In fact, you shouldn't do all of it. You should just do one, two, and three, and then, one on steroids. But you got to do one of it. You have to do
Right.
something. Okay. You
Yes.
can't just sit there and think that this is going to fall in your lap. And if you're not willing to get this, then you're going to partner with somebody
Yeah.
that is, and partner with somebody that's willing to go get business. Hopefully, you're going to be able to coach and mentor you, help you, guide you, and help you be a better person. And so if you're not willing to go lead generate or prospect, then that's what you're left with, or being an entrepreneur is not for you.
Right.
That's the
Exactly.
reality of it. I'll just give you the cold,
Yeah. No, that's,
sorry to.
yep. No, that's what we look for. That's the truth. That's the
Yeah.
honest truth of it, and the reality of it. Kind of along those lines, when you talk about lead generation, one of the things that I found, Dan, I wanted to get your thoughts on this, is I come across people that don't understand, even when you talk about perceived value, they don't understand reciprocity. That's a word
Mm.
that I see in my current market here in Memphis, and in other markets that I've been in, is that people initially don't understand the prudence of reciprocity. They don't understand bidirectional value, or even creating the perceived bidirectional value. They tend to enter business the same way they do personally, right? They don't think about what they can offer. They're always asking, but they don't think of how to get value, or create that value on a two-way street. Right. And I think that
Yeah.
hurts them, and they get frustrated because I'll give you an example. If they want to get into real estate, they want to talk to people. They know what they want. Right. And they are able to, they find a way to articulate what they want. Whether they're talking to a lead, a motivated seller, if they're talking to someone they may partner with, but they don't take enough time to really understand and be able to then articulate what the value is to the other person, or what they can offer of value, in return. So, everybody, then in the transaction knows, what's in it for you, but they can't pick out what's in it for me. And so then there's a frustration that happens. And that's where, like you say, that 18-month, kind of pathway doesn't happen. And so then they're always in that gerbil wheel of
Prospecting mode.
always having
Yeah.
to rev up. Yeah, exactly. And then they burn out, right?
Yeah.
And that's where you find out that, well, either they keep doing it and it's just a hobby for them. It doesn't never
Yeah.
transforms into a business. It's just a hobby that I can post about on Facebook, but I never really do anything, right? Because at the end of
Yeah.
the day, I don't understand the bi-directional nature of that. Do you see some of that, as well, kind of with what you do?
Well, so what you have to understand, yes. And what you have to understand is that the first question out of your mouth before you ask for something, you could consider to say, "How can I help you?"
Yes.
And when you become known as somebody that's a connector, I get people all the time. I got a guy over the weekend call me and he said he wanted to have my advice on opening up a gun store. Right?
Yeah.
I don't, I'm not a gun guy, right? But he
Right.
knows I have a business acumen,
Yes.
and and he's and I'm willing to talk to the guy for an hour, walk him through what he needs, and that's no problem, no sweat, because that's
Right.
about just helping. I
Yeah.
had a personal development coach years ago, and he
Yeah.
asked me, he said, Dan, what do you want out of life? And I said, yeah, I just want to, I went through some things, and some of those things was a relationship with my mom and my dad, who divorced when I, was 10 years old, in different, lives. And he said
Yeah.
to me, he said, I can guarantee you, I give you the recipe to having that. He said, what does that look like to you? I said, well, maybe a phone call once a week. And it's not like some BS phone call like how's the weather. It's an
Right.
actual phone call, an
Right.
actual conversation, a meaningful conversation. And he says, if you follow my coaching, I guarantee you'll get what you just described. I say, hey, what you got? He says, you want them to call you once a week? You call them 4 times a week. And I promise you in 6 months, they'll be calling you once a week.
Yeah.
And I did that, and he was right.
Mm-hmm.
And that concept works in business as well. But
Yes.
what you have to understand is the proportion is you're going to be giving more. And when you understand that you're going to be giving more without an expectation that it's going to be a one-for-one transaction, then you can approach business from the law of reciprocity. There's a gentleman named Dr. Cialdini who wrote a book about persuasion, and one of the six things of persuasion that he talked about was the law of reciprocity, which
Mm-hmm.
means that if I give you something, you're going to feel obliged to give something back, even if it's like
Yeah.
if somebody opens up the door, then what's the next guy coming through that door do? He like reaches
Right.
out and he opens up the door, right?
He opens the door.
He's
Right.
right. That's reciprocity right there. And so
Yes.
that's the way that it works. And then the last thing I'll say about this is, as you develop your business, you want to find other business owners that you can give to. For
Yes.
me, it's a carpet guy, it's a painter, it's an electrician, it's a cleaners. These are people I can refer business to all day long. And
Yes.
so now I create the relationships with them by leading with giving. And if they don't give back after a period of time, I replace the relationship,
Mm-hmm.
because it goes back to they may not know the law of reciprocity, and they may not know that if it's not a one-way street, it's a buy. I forget what you use there, a buy relationship,
Yeah.
type thing. It goes two ways, and so you do want to manage that. And I've been fortunate. I've been in business long enough today that I have all my relationships go two ways.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, it wasn't like that. I had to
Yeah.
upgrade pretty much,
Yeah.
top grade.
Yep, there you go. No doubt. Let's talk a little bit about the business real quick too, Dan. Greetings, Virginia.
Yeah,
Um, talk about what you do there and who you work with, and just a little bit about the business. We've got some listeners that are in that area or travel
sure.
through that area. What can they expect?
Yeah, so I've got two businesses. So I got Greetings Virginia, that specializes in helping buyers and sellers to achieve their dreams, to solve their problems, and to reach their goals. And then I've
Yeah.
got the CPI community. So you can find the
Yes.
CPI community on Facebook. There's CPI community podcast. It's all over the
Yes.
place, right? You can apply to become a member on the Facebook group, the CPI community, and that's consistent, predictable income for salespeople, entrepreneurs, CEOs.
Yeah.
That's what that company is designed to be able to help. And so we've got like a coaching program that we have a bunch of people every 2 weeks. They come in and I work with coaching them and advising them. And it's a real cheap price. It's $49 a month. Right. And then we've got more expensive programs that's a little bit more extensive than that. But that's
Sure.
really what's available to business owners and what's available to entrepreneurs, salespeople. And then Greetings Virginia, it's about, helping people, in real estate transactions with
Yeah.
our experience. It's really our experience is our biggest value proposition that we offer to the real estate consumers, to the buyers and sellers.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And how many people are on your team, there, but I guess between the two businesses, how many people, kind of work with you and help facilitate those?
So I've got 17 right now. My
Yeah.
brokerage that I used to own, we had 150. That's the biggest company that I'd own, and we're past that. And
Yeah.
so of the 17, it is 3 real estate agents and 14 staff members. Right
Wow.
now, think about that: 14
Wow.
staff members
Yeah.
for 3 real. What is that? Almost a 5-to-1 ratio.
Right. Yeah. So how
Okay,
does
and
that work? I mean, because I haven't heard that type of model set up. So
well,
how does that work for you guys?
the staff are located in the Philippines.
Okay.
And we
Gotcha.
treat them like a staff. They are partners of mine.
Yeah.
Okay, they are partners of mine. We have relationships because we cultivate the relationship. I mentioned earlier about leadership. I didn't really dive into that, right?
Yeah.
But we there's a very specific method that you could create a business of value and not have to spend a lot of money in salary.
Sure.
Okay. And so the way that those are organized is that there's a marketing department, there's a lead generation department, there's a client care department, and then there's a
Yeah.
director of operations. My director of operations, Julene, she manages not only the entire crew in the Philippines, but she also manages 2 people here locally, the runner and his assistant that doesn't really do things all the time, right? But she's
Right.
managing the photographs, she's managing things here locally, and I don't think that the people that she's calling know that she's 8,000 miles away. I mean, she's a
Right.
highly competent individual. And Monica, who's doing the client care, same thing. Just really, really highly competent people. But you have to be able to, the best person I have on there, or the most important person besides Julene, would be Elvia, because or at least Elvia's role, her full-time job is hiring. And I
Mm.
don't think until I realized that I needed one person whose full-time job was hiring, I
Yeah.
don't think until I realized that was when we started to grow.
Wow.
And yeah, because we always have top level people coming in, available to come into the company. And when we're ready to expand, there's somebody there. And
Yeah.
if somebody is, if we lose somebody, somebody's there. And it keeps them honest, right? Because
Right.
I
Yeah.
had once upon a time, I had a walkout on me of 3 people, and they held me hostage because they knew that they could. And,
Right.
they asking for more money inappropriately. I'm like, no, I can't afford to be able to pay that to you. You're very important to me, and I can't afford that. And they
Right.
walked. And, so they tried to hold me hostage on that. And that was years ago. I didn't quite learn, the strategy years ago of how to deal with that.
Yeah.
But Elvia helps me
Yeah.
with, avoiding that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's just I haven't heard that. That's a tremendous way to kind of view the business and to scale it at a cost effective, but again focus on the effective piece of
Yeah.
being able to operate the business. So
We
Dan,
run
let
a
me ask you.
33% profit margin is where we run on it
Wow, you say that
for the
again?
sales business.
33%?
Yeah. That's after paying the
33%?
agents. That's after paying the staff. That's after paying marketing
Wow, that's
before
tremendous, man.
taxes.
Yeah, yeah, that's tremendous though, man.
Taxes.
That's awesome. Yeah, oh, of course, tax, and you're right there in the area for the source of all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so excellent, man. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's a great like you say, to understand and learn different business models, I think is tremendous. And hopefully NYB community, as you listen to this, you're taking notes and kind of learning again some different strategies and tactics on how to operate and scale your business. And so for those that are interested in your coaching program and things like that, can they go just straight to the website? That we're going to have that there in the show notes.
Yeah.
Greetingsvirginia.com. Is that where they can go to kind of get connected?
No, it would be www.the cpicommunity.com. And
Okay,
that's where they
gotcha.
could go to get all the information about our coaching, or they go to danrochon.com,
Yeah,
ROCHON. And we
awesome.
also, you're talking about like building those teams. We offer services to help people to hire virtual assistants, give them training, leadership, and that's part of some of the services that we hire that we
Awesome.
offer in addition to the coaching.
Yeah, awesome. So that's dcpicommunity.com, MYB community.
CPI, Charlie
Yes,
Papa India.
there we go. Thecpicommunity.com.
Yep,
Yep,
the
definitely.
CPIcommunity.com. Actually, absolutely.
Yep, excellent, excellent. So MYB community, love for you to go and peruse that now, and then definitely connect with Dan there in that community, and let him know that you heard him here on the Minding Your Business podcast. Dan, let me ask you a quick fun question. We've been talking a lot about businesses and pandemics and pandemonium and business models, that sort of thing. But let me ask you a fun question. If I brought you no strings attached, $100 million in cash, right? I show up, there. I've got a spare 100 million. um, give
Pulling
or
out my
take a few
pocket.
bucks. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. And I want to just give that to you. What would you do with that money and why?
So I would keep it and I would invest it. I think that
Yeah,
the natural answer for somebody to answer on that would be, taking some money for charity first.
sure.
And the reason why I wouldn't give anything to charity initially is because I would set up foundations from it and set up a mechanism to be able to manage it after my death, so that
Sure.
those charities can be a part of my legacy. And
Yeah.
so I would put it into mostly probably real estate investments, maybe into some business ownership, and put that all into a trust. And then from
Yeah.
that trust, I would be able to have the people that are important and the charities that are important to benefit.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, tremendous. Yeah, I kind of like that. Almost like a foundation that gives the foundations.
Yeah.
And so that you can manage it and kind of centralize it and that sort of thing. And like you say, have it be perpetual for
Was
legacy
that an
building
offer,
and that
Rob?
sort of
Was
thing.
that an offer, by the way?
Yeah, yeah, I think it was.
The 100 million. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
I think it
I'm
was.
all right. I'll be looking in my mailbox.
Yeah. Yeah, that's even the neater trick. If I could fit 100 million in your mailbox, that's some mailbox.
It's a big
And
mailbox.
nobody drive by and see it. Yeah, that's the other trick too. So hey Dan, as we wrap up, man, because this has been tremendous. I've learned a lot. I think everyone that's listening has learned tremendously, not just about the real estate business, but just how you're able to tie your background and how you approach business, just overall the business. I think anybody listening to this gains a really nice perspective. What are just one or two best practices that you've incorporated that work for you personally, that you think will work for this audience? Because listen, there are folks listening to this that are again in the workforce. They're ready to get out. There are folks who have been displaced from the workforce as a result of the current landscape. There are those that their businesses are thriving and they have the opposite issue. They're trying to figure out, how can I deal with all this growth and this opportunity, right? And so you've got people all around the gambit that are listening to this. What are just one or two things that really work for you that you think will work for someone else?
Time blocking. So time blocking would be, I think, the secret ingredient to the sauce. And to be able to most effectively time block, you have to take the fun stuff first, the vacations, the family stuff. You put that on your calendar first. You put your time off on the calendar first.
Yeah.
Then you put whatever's important to you personally, for your health. For me, it's going to the gym. It
Yeah.
could be, whatever, taking 3-4 day weekends, whatever the case may be. Then you put all that onto the calendar. Then you put on your highest priority activity for your business, which is going to probably be lead generation. As a
Sure.
business develops, it could also be training. It could be recruiting, selecting, motivating. It could be managing financials as a business grows. Right? So some of those things are my highest priorities many days rather than lead generation. But as you start, it's going to be lead generation. So then that goes into your calendar. and then you just use that as your Bible, and just that's what you do. You have to
Yeah.
treat your business like you are your boss, and you have to treat your business like you're going to clock in, you're going to clock out, and you're going to have specific things to do at specific times. They're general things in the specific times, like lead generation could be whatever it is to find business, but you're going to be taking that 1 to 2 to 3 hours to be able to find business every single day.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. I love that. We call that time management. That's the kind of common thing, but I love the tying time management into when people say that they want to be in business and be their own boss, that's exactly what you need to be, right? So typically in most people's jobs,
you gotta look at it from your boss's perspective and say, what would me as my boss say about my job today?
right.
Right. We'll just look
Right.
at it from this, you are your own boss. So be that boss and be like, dude, you didn't do your lead generation today.
Right.
Right. You're not getting a raise. Go back to work.
Yeah. And you know what? We could almost do another podcast episode almost on that very point. So we won't get deep into that right now, but that I could really get fired up on that because, like I say, again, a lot of people want to be the boss, but then they turn around and then be the employee. Right.
Yeah.
They say, I want to be a boss. I want to be the boss. I don't want to have to answer anybody, blah, blah, blah. And then they start a business and only to then be just the employee. Right. Of the business. And they don't really dive into the management piece of it. They try to lead it, but they're not managing the process. And so they're just, then they suck back into their employee mentality, whereas, okay, nobody's watching me. Right. So I'll just do whatever the hell I want, or I'll just kind of skate by, and it's, I think a lot of people
you gotta
miss
put
that.
your boss hat on in those days.
Yes.
And you got to tell yourself, you have to be your best employee.
Yes.
And that's the
Very
perspective
true.
that you have to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Dan Rochon is our guest today here on episode number 197 of the Minding Your Business podcast. Go to thecpicommunity.com. thecpicommunity.com. It's right there in the show notes, MYB. I expect you to go out there and check it out. I will be doing the same here as we get done with this particular episode. Dan, listen, man, I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you sharing the insight and sharing your story. Best wishes to you and your family as we go forward. Look to remain connected. And if I could be a resource, I'm just a call or an email away.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Yep, absolutely, Dan. Enjoy the rest of your day, man. We'll talk soon.
Bye.
All right. See you later. All right. So that was Dan Rochon joining us here, MYB, on the Minding Your Business podcast, episode number 197. And just tremendous, man. Just a tremendous guy doing great business. Guy's a real heart for the business. You know how I am about no nonsense. The pit bulls that are out there. Those are the type of guys and girls that I like in business. No nonsense pit bulls. They go after it. They don't let no stop them. And those are just tremendous folks. And so, make sure you check out, his resources and, communicate with him and again, let him know you heard him right here on the podcast. Listen, before we get out of here, go to champronbrooks.com. That's the new site. I've been sharing that with you. You guys have been tremendous with going and checking it out. I've seen your emails. I really appreciate that. And we want to continue to grow that particular platform. It's been great for me. It's, been able to lessen some of the load with instead of having all the various websites that we had, we're able to kind of centralize that and then break out from there. That one website. So go to champronbrooks.com. You can see all my various ventures, escapades, that sort of thing. You can connect with me. I've got some things of value there for you that are at no cost that you can come and take advantage of. So go there, champronbrooks.com. Would love to connect with you right there. Leverage, don't forget, leveragecalc.com. I'm an equity partner with Leverage. That's financial software for real estate professionals. and those that are in business. Uh, Remember that the conversation with your banker is very critical. Wouldn't it be great if you already knew you were approved before you talked to your banker? Isn't the worst thing talking with your banker and he or she asks you for tax returns, they ask you for balance sheets, income statements, everything, going down to your right foot and your left hand, right? And then only to find out that you're not approved for whatever reason, right? You don't meet this criteria, you don't meet that. Why not already know that? Isn't it a better conversation when you're empowered and you have the same information that your banker has? And take it from someone that was a 17-year banker. I would have loved for my clients to have this conversation. It would have saved us a lot of heartache and whole lot of time. And quite frankly, a lot of you are working with bankers, especially if you're working at a big bank with bankers at big banks. You're probably talking to someone that wasn't really trained in banking. They're more of a middle person between underwriting and you, right? And so they're just telling you what the computer tells them. Okay. Hey, that's the way it is. Okay. So if you want to have a real good, meaningful conversation with your bank when you're looking to borrow money, to purchase an asset, or to grow your business, purchase inventory, check out leverageCalc.com. That's leverage, LEVERAGECALC.com. Make sure you go there. I'm equity partner. John Matheson, who's the president and CEO, and his entire team are just tremendous. And you can get that software right now. It's just $97 a month for that software. You can get it for the year for $197 right now. So again, if you're doing deals, it's a great software to go in, input, information. And it's going to tell you not just can you be approved based on the bank's underwriting criteria, but also is the deal viable to begin with? Is it a financeable deal? And a lot of you want to know that up front, right? And so you'll have the information. The information is the power. Make sure that you have viable information that's accurate and that you can articulate and have a really good conversation with your banker. And so go to leveragecal.com, and that way you can check it out. If you get with me, email me, and I will even set you up with a live demo for you to be able to go. If you have interest, or you and some of your partners have interest, let me know. We will do that at no cost to you. And we'll do a demo and let you be able to see how the software works and how you can benefit from this, having the software. So it's just tremendous. And like I talked about with Dan earlier, we talked about the investment opportunity. This has been a great investment opportunity for me in an area that I've got some real expertise. And so thank you all for your support there. And listen, we're just going to keep the train moving. We're quickly getting to episode 200. So we're going to have something special in the works for you guys for episode number 200 for rocking with us all this time. Entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own. This is the Minding Your Business podcast. I am Champ Ron. Listen, remember, there are three things that we all have in common. And I always tell you guys this. And I always like to either start episodes or end them with this. Three things we all have in common, no matter how we look in the mirror. I know with everything going on, it comes down to this. We all want to be a little better for ourselves, a little better for our families, and a little better for our communities. And if you keep that in mind, and with everybody that you come in contact with, if you keep that in mind, we'll see all things be just a little bit better for all of us, right? If we keep that in mind. So it doesn't matter how you look, doesn't matter what side of the tracks you came from, your bank account balance, it doesn't matter, right? There's those three things that we all can unify around. And so, again, keep that in mind when you come across your fellow man or fellow woman. Okay. Listen, I'm going to get out of here. Champ Ron, Minding Your Business podcast. Go be great.